I usually feel like I'm on Twitter to defend my shit. People who bite and shit like that.
Biters.
Yeah.
You got any trolls on Twitter?
Nah, that's a safe space.
Yeah, really?
Safe space, yeah. I don't have trolls on Twitter, so. There's a lot of gods and nerds on Twitter, though. They must be blocking and stopping all the trolls from getting me on there.
I mean, I don't know. This might attract them. Right? He's on Twitter.
He's on, yeah. I'm on Threads now. You can follow me there.
So Threads is a
Instagram's own like
Twitter version
version of Twitter, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. They let you post more photos though. You know how like you can in Twitter you can only put 4 at a time. In there I put like 10. Yeah, so you could like it's like Facebook. You know how Facebook in Instagram you can put 10. Right? You can put 10 pictures in one post. You know? Who knows? If it fills up. It's funny, everything seems so so guided to we're really all just stuck on one thing. We feel like we have these platforms, but it's really all like at their own whim. If they ruin the platform, we have no platform. Right?
Right.
So it doesn't feel like we made something. Because people on Black Twitter, they be like Black Twitter and shit like that, and it's just like, yo, you just follow. They just put you in the algorithm, and that put you in this cipher.
Right.
You didn't make Black Twitter. That's just the algorithm that placed you in there. You think you're popping in there. You know, it's like white people have white Twitter, and they're probably having all these conversations there, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you gotta like social media is you gotta like take control of your content because you put everything on there and let them have it, and then they curate it the way they want to curate it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because I'm mainly there to try to sell shit.
Yeah.
I know the thing. I'm just you know what I mean. And then I have a Substack, and then I read that Twitter doesn't mess with Substack like that. So when you say Substack or put a Substack link, it doesn't traffic.
What is a Substack? What's that? I don't know.
Substack is like I don't want to say a blog because I love my work too much to call it a blog.
Okay.
It's a place people put articles up, and then you pay a subscription to read your stuff.
Okay.
So you could put stuff for free for anybody to read it, but paid subscribers will get access to more stories. So like for me, most of the stuff there you gotta pay to read it.
Okay.
Because I put long articles. So like if you see an article in there, it's long. You know?
That project you did with Wall, man, it's kind of got you in another space now, huh? Like you're.
I guess, yeah. You know what space I thought I would be in though, which I am in though, like as far as how it hits me daily, is the way that I listen to music, like hip hop. I just hear a little bit different though. Like I could hear more of the difficulties or no more. So when you write about music, you're trying to appreciate how people make music though. So I realize how difficult certain things are, like more directly. You know what I'm saying? How hard it is to keep a pocket. You know what I'm saying? How hard it is to keep your voice consistent.
Right.
You know, things like that. Projection. You know, things like that. These are things that you hear about only if you notice it, if you're there watching people record, which, you know, you don't always get that opportunity. Usually don't always get the opportunity for that. And if people will tell you that. But a lot of MCs, like, they're so good that those aren't problems that they have. So it wouldn't be something that, you know, people are spoiled by how talented certain MCs are, you know what I'm saying? So they don't really know, like, how much effort this takes. And even probably the MC doesn't notice it. You know what I'm saying?
That's something that you don't really concern yourself with that too much though, right? Like in terms of
as far as
staying in pocket and whatnot, like as a poet, like or is that something you are trying to?
No, I work on it only because it's like a thing to work on. right? It's a thing to work on. You know what I'm saying? Like I see it like this now, right? I have any way, I have any form I have for writing and he's got to express myself, right? So if I'm expressing myself through that form, you know, on a break beat, you know, on a straight up break beat, let me try to do it like that. You know what I'm saying? You know, so like me and Kamal working on something with true cipher beats, and theirs are very, you know, theirs are boom bappy, very, very,
Right.
Stripped down. You know what I mean?
You say boom bap, not just samples or loops.
Yeah,
right?
Samples, like a lot of like just clean, very clean loops.
No, but I mean, because I know like there's a movement going on without the drums, like no drums.
No. True Cipher is very drum heavy.
Drum heavy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I found too that when the drums are more dominant in the beat, though, I have more of a problem.
Really?
Yes, I have more of a problem. Yeah.
How's that?
What the hell? I've only been an MC a little bit. I'm still trying to figure out why I feel that problem, though. You know what I'm saying? So like when I throw stuff at King, though, he's getting me after like a ton of takes. So even King may not be able to like comment while he wouldn't be able to comment while it's happening. You know, because I'm sending him out there and see Medina and stuff like what I just did. But that's after a lot of takes. But what I can say is that I can hear if I'm in the pocket better. If I'm the way I want it to be. You know what I'm saying? So that's a thing too. You know what I mean? Or if you're away, put emotion to it, different things, you know what I mean? Yeah. What I definitely try to don't stay as a poet is I don't really try to stay with the same tone.
Right.
If it feels emotional, I just want to go high, low, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Even if I fuck up the pocket, though, I don't mind. I'm okay with that. You know?
Kind of like Miles Davis, and he was like, fuck up is kind of.
Oh yeah, I try to take the good in it, though.
Yeah.
This is good, like. But then sometimes, now when I do it now, though, sometimes I'll be like, no, it deserves a rewrite because it's not worth it what I just did there. So if it ventures off too sloppy, and it doesn't have a great, if it's not a great enough line, if it's not written that well, it has to be worth it, like what I wrote. You know what I'm saying?
So you really becoming like a real MC now, like a real.
I try to attack it like that. You know what I'm saying? I try to attack it like that.
Okay.
You know, because there's a lot of people. There's so much music outside. I think one advantage I have is that I hear almost everything that's good. You know, so like I could notice if like I could even, it's funny. I hear a lot of verses and I could hear my own influences too. Like I did a song with Kamal, and then when I heard it after he gave it a rough mix, and I was like, wow, I started that just like a Kill Army song. And that makes sense, obviously, because I've heard Kill Army like millions of times. You know what I mean? Like,
you're a fan of Kill Army.
I mean, I've trained like for years. That was all I was training with. You know what I mean? Like, if I couldn't train or I was too tired to wake up, I was Kill Army. You know what I mean? And they only have 3 albums. You know, so you're playing
this thing.
You're playing it more and more. You know what I'm saying? And yes, so you can hear your influences. Also, too, Kamal, because he could do anything. He could do everything. You know what I'm saying? And he has so much melody that it makes me think about it more. You know what I'm saying? He has so much melody. It isn't just saying things like. And the album we're doing now, they're more boom. They're even more rugged boom bap, but.
I thought that last one was kind of boom bap-ish.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you're saying this is
I would say maybe this one. I would say it's more hardcore. As opposed to saying boom bap. This one's very hardcore.
Oh.
Because that's how True Cipher makes them. But he has such great choruses though. His melodies are crazy though. And he be on his most Def shit too. He be throwing it.
You know that is just because he does kind of remind me of that, and it's in that vein.
He has that. He can do the sing-song choruses and stuff and all that. It's just, people gonna love the way he's doing his choruses. It's crazy. You know, that's like the best thing that. Definitely an immediate thing.
Seems like everybody's becoming everybody's like a musician, a rapper, or some kind of artist nowadays, right? Like like social media being so content driven, it's like
Yeah.
everybody's stepping into that world of art.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm always teaching, and I'm always telling people to always try to, experiment with creation. Yeah,
experiment with your creativity.
Right, your creativity. So like if you're writing in your journal, let words flow, try new words. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like it's whack, sometimes people aren't poets because their words are whack. They don't have enough words.
But that's also a person being so critical. I mean, I've been told I have a way with words, right? But a lot of times I try to write some stuff and I'm like, I'm too critical like that. So I don't really fall in the category of, or at least I don't put myself in the category of a MC poet,
Right.
But I guess it's kind of limited.
All of us should try, though.
So all of us should try.
Should try something creative. I think everyone should try writing something creatively. It's like the foundation of the class. I said it was reading, writing, communication skills, and one of the main things is for everybody to have a personal journal. And I always tell them like focus on the 3 things to write, like builds on the lessons, right? Days mathematics, things like that, right? Question, whatever you're thinking about that, but also your life experiences and stuff to develop an honesty with yourself. A place where you could be honest about that. You know what I mean? If you have to burn the book later, like I don't know, but like. But also write about and comment on all of the things that you see. I think one of the reasons that we don't have, and I say we in general, we don't always have well-defined ideas. And when you see social media, you can see that people are going. They usually give an immediate thought and put it out there. It's not a well-constructed idea. That's why I always tell students, I have students, right, and they stop, but then they stop building because they only want to build that way. But they'll build on today's math and throw it on there, and I said, listen, you're not ready. There's certain people I tell you they're not ready for that. Hold that, like let it develop. Like let today's degree, if it's July 6th, think about your day's mathematics, July, August, September, October, November, then see what you get for December on that day. That might be better. Who has the patience for that? But that's really how it goes. And I could say this stuff. I could write off the whim out. I'm from a different era, so I was an era for where you had to publish it and you can't fix it. You know what I'm saying? It's already out there. It's too late. So I already have that experience of probably 5, not even though, it's probably 15 years. It's 15 years where you write stuff, and if you don't like it though, you have to suffer that something shitty is in print. And I first got that when I was in college because I was writing it was bi-weekly and I was writing a column. And I always tried to write something creative. And then I would be like, it would get near the deadline. And I'd be like, I don't have shit. And then when I would have a good one, that would put pressure for the next week. I'd be thinking about this shit has to be as dope as the last one. So all those things you get practice with, to let it go, to add on, and honestly, the only way to keep doing that is to keep reading. Everybody that creates has to keep reading though, so it foments all of the other activities. So if you do certain things, if you try creativity, it forces you to read more, study more, engage more. So it's going to put you in the reading vein. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Sounds something like an engagement, because I was watching something with Elon Musk, and he was talking about the input and output of a human, right? So the input is 1,000 times more than what you can output.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's interesting. So now you engage and trying to engage with what you know is.
Because it reminds me too. I told this to the god, one of the gods, last week. Paramahansa Yogananda. He wrote a book called Our Autobiography of a Yogi. I have it. Anybody that wants it, I can send it to you. But in that book, it's a famous book because his teacher told him to go throughout all of India and speak to all the great philosophers of the era. So, for example, he actually spoke to Rabindranath Tagore, who's one of my favorite writers ever. He wrote he's considered a polymath. He wrote hundreds of poems. He wrote books, plays, novels that are like movies in India now. Like he was a real giant, beautiful writer, you know. And he also had his own ashrams, like you know, places where they live and they build, you know. So think of like a law school, but they live there. You know, that's what an ashram is. And
a law school was once like that.
right, that's why I said that. Yeah, but Tagore. So he talked to Tagore. He talked to a young Gandhi. So like right when he's starting to like, you know, throw away the not just, you know, throw away not just European clothes, but also Indian clothes, and he's making his own clothes, like that stage where he's just spindling, you know, his own clothes. You know what I mean?
Spindling.
Because he made it that far, like he was going, you know. So I think he got him right at that stage where he was getting there. So it's still early in a lot of his thought processes. You know what I mean? But then after he was supposed to get all these insights from all of these thinkers, Yogananda was supposed to go to Europe and build with those, and in the book shows all of his travels and all the things that he was picking up. You know what I mean? And that's his famous book. But there's another small book that he wrote. I think it was called Scientific Affirmations, something like that. And it was one of those books I read sitting in Barnes and Nobles. You know, like you take little books so you could finish it.
Right.
And I read it there, and he said this thing like, when you read something, like when you read a book, you should be able to write 3 pages to every 1 page. So the quality of input should inspire you to have all these things. Now, that doesn't always happen. Like you could look at a page and get nothing out of it. Though.
Right.
But the point is that we really are like absorbing mass amounts of information, and we don't get everything out. You know. So sometimes it's like the quality. A lot of times the great creators aren't just in their talent of making the creation, but also in how they get output out of the input. You know what I'm saying? Like how much they process, like how much do they get insights, understanding out of certain things, you know, possibilities, you know. That's why writing a journal is so important though, because you're gonna miss out so many things. At least you could maybe go back a day through this day or the last few days and think about things, or look back on a book and see what was in it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and like a journal, I started to write a journal. It was right then when Dayson had told me about the nation. He told me in 1998. And we was doing stuff in magazines and shit like that at the college, right? But he told me about the nation in 98. I didn't go to a law school in 1998. It was almost like a whole year.
Because you went in 99.
Because Dayson was so intent on telling me, you gotta be writing exactly, or they'll get a universal beatdown. That's not really the case, right? Like if I didn't know anything, I could have came here and said, I don't know, I'm here to learn. But with Dayson, you're gonna get it, you know.
Gives the way he gives it, right?
Yeah, that's how he gave, you know, that's how he was telling me. So I was like, oh, okay. And that's why, yeah.
Oh man, Dayson.
You know? So I was like, I was reading all these books, and I couldn't remember all these books. I read Message to the Black Man, and like, I was 85, so I didn't really, you know, there's a lot to absorb, you know, to say the least, you know. I read what did I read? I read Afrocentricity. I read some other books, but the big juggernaut that I read, like the biggest juggernaut I read that time, besides Message to the Black Man, was Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, and I couldn't. It was a lot to absorb, so I got a journal. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to write down everything that I want to keep. Because what I used to do is I used to be in the library and I used to rip out pages. But I was like, damn, this book is going to be thin as hell if I rip out the things I need. So, and I didn't, you know, I was like, I ain't going to put all this money and start doing a million photocopies either. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to write down everything.
It's before PDFs or before?
Yeah, all before that, yeah. So I started to write down everything that was in the book that I found that I wanted to remember or to think about. And then after a while, I started to write commentaries after I wrote it all down. And that became my habit. To this day, even books I own, I write down what I want to remember in there. So I'll write it down, you know what I'm saying? And then I'll comment on it, you know? And I made a plus lesson for that too, if anybody wants that. I call it scholarly notation, you know?
And so this was like a notation on everything that you was reading at the
everything
time.
I was reading, yeah. And it became, over the years, it became like the main thing I do in my journal. You know, commentaries on what I see, what I think, all of these things, like what I'm studying, you know what I'm saying? I'll write about movies I saw, like if they have thoughts and ideas, you know what I'm saying? And so I keep all of these ideas and stuff, you know? And commentaries. It also made me practice though. So if I wrote about a book that was like a Diop book, right? Like Diop book or Sertima, those are scholars though. So what I would do is I would write back I would try to write back as scholarly as it came across. You know? And if it only developed the ability to speak that way. Peace God. Everything's peace God.
They put the squad last week.
Oh, indeed.
I'm still in the middle of that day.
That's peace God.
Nice and heavy. You know, El a la sauce. I love y'all.
Likewise, God. Yeah, but yeah. So I started doing that in 1998, you know? And
That's a good way. That's a good way to keep up with ideas. Because I mean,
what happens is that I don't always go back to old journals. They just kind of stay stuck in my head by doing that writing process. And then now I've written 70 of them. I've written 70 of them. And in that time,
you haven't published any of them.
No, these are just personal journals though. They're in boxes. I just
Imagine
keep
that being published. That's
yeah. You know what though? There's some of them I can't even read. I write so ugly. You know what I mean?
oh man.
But obviously the whole thing I wouldn't. You know, they have personal stuff in there. Not that.
Okay, right,
You know?
right.
Beef. You know, niggas have beef with, right? Trolls. But no,
Trolls and whatnot.
But,
Uh-oh.
no, the troll didn't get any. I barely write about that. That's more comical to me. But the thing about it though is that in the journals, I wrote 70 of them. I'm on number 71. But I actually spent about 10 years not writing in a journal. Because that was when in the 2000s, my writing really took off. Like I started to develop it. And I just couldn't figure out. I had this idea that I didn't want to waste my writing. You know, like writing is a thing not to waste. So I didn't want to waste it in the journal. Which was totally wrong. Now I have a totally different approach though. Now it's more like, you know, Curry in the gym. I want to take 1,000 shots in the gym.
Right.
Every day. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So at least the bare minimum I have to write at least 10 pages.
A day?
Every week.
Every week. Okay.
Every week.
That's doable. It's 10 pages every
There are
week.
some years where I've written like 25 a week. And that has become, if you do the math, that becomes like 500 pages. You know what I mean?
Right.
But now that I publish so much stuff, though, I'm always going back and forth. You know what I'm saying? And you know, and then writing stuff with Kamal. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of stuff.
So is that 70 composition notebooks or?
Yeah, except the first one. The first one was like 100 pages. It was a spiral notebook. My
Spiral.
first one.
The very first one.
But then after that, it's all like the classical composition book. Yeah.
7,200 page joints.
7,200 pages. Yeah.
Wow.
And there's a lot of years I didn't write though. So in those.
What years were those?
Mainly in the 2000s.
Early 2000s?
Yeah, because I was still trying to figure it out, you know. After the Fury began again seriously, where I really was diligent with it, was after my second daughter was born. So around 2013. So then I was like, I have to write regularly. But for a few years, I only wrote one journal a year, you know. But then after that, I got more consistent. This decade, I read a lot though, on everything. You know.
You mean from 2020?
Since 2020, you know,
Since
like
2020.
I'm a writer and I was in quarantine, so what the fuck happened? What do you do? Right? We're in quarantine though. What do you? Right? I self-quarantine, all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like, it's always a balance, like, do I go out and do stuff, or do I, there's a thing, a book, what the hell's the word? I always forget the name of the book. Let me look it up. I have to get- There's a book by Balthazar Gracian that's very famous, so I'll tell you how famous Balthazar Gracian. So famous that one of Jesus' greatest lines is from it. The art of worldly wisdom.
Right, I think you mentioned that before.
Yeah. And that's really what Jesus quoted when he said the immortality of my fame is the measure of others' torture.
Mm.
Which is such a dope line though, but it's actually not from Jesus. He quoted it. It's from Balthazar Gracian. But that thing that he said in that book where he said 3 things, you spend half your life learning, I guess in study, you spend half of it doing, and then, not half of it, a third of it study, a third of it doing, and a third of it writing down what you have done. As a writer though, you're always going in and out of both of those. You're not really in one stage ever. Write down what we experience. We go out to get experiences though, but then we have to also keep studying. So it's kind of more of a juggle as opposed to doing it like that. That's why I stopped writing a journal. When I read that book, I was like, okay, it's gonna be 3. Maybe it should be 3. Maybe I shouldn't write in the journals and just try to write only creative things. But then I realized it's really a combination of all 3. They're all happening at the same time. You're constantly shifting.
Yeah, I find the guards is like are the illest writers and even the illest artists. Like, cause earlier on when I would come around, I would see or hear guards build, and I later realized those are manifestations that they wrote down and actually memorized, and now they're out in the cipher performing it.
Right. Yeah.
And it'd be dope, like, wow, I was ill, but he actually constructed that in the laboratory.
That's the thing too. A lot of students too, they forget that one of the major keys is to memorize your understanding. I'll tell them they said something really great and they don't memorize it.
Right, because I find like if people just throw out these ideas and don't hold on to them,
And I don't know how people could memorize their understanding without writing it down. That was really like Dumar's gift though. All those things that we were getting were his understanding though, and he wrote them down. So, by writing them down, then when he would sell it to us, right? We're kind of getting him to expound on it. Like, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? So he's never forgetting the build. It's why I was like, when I taught here, everything that if I had a profound lesson that I taught and stuff, I would try to make that into a kind of a plus lesson. And that's what makes the plus lessons I give, you know what I mean? Those particular things that I think could be coupled into a whole segment, Yeah. But Dumar was a real master at that, real master. We always know him as the national spokesperson though, but I think he would have been great just in the classroom daily. And a lot of times, like, many times he would come into my class and I would just like, that's my break. I take a break.
Because he's going to build.
Because he's going to build, but it actually goes into those
things, right.
And I would buy all of them though, so I'd be like, oh, he's going into this one, He's going into this one, Like when he does the planet Earth and he starts going to 24,896 miles, and then he goes approximately 25,000. He had builds for each one,
right?
And each one would go into
just memorizes all in his mind, like that.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, I need to do. I can't do it like that. But whatever I do that's useful, I need to like write it down so I can continue to teach. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, for a lot of years, I would have like a plus lessons of my own folder. That folder's at home because I don't need to bring it. I can digitize everything.
Right.
But that's how I came up with that because of Dumo.
How much of that have you memorized?
I would like to think I memorized my whole.
Oh yeah, really?
All my plus lessons, kind of. But no.
I mean, but Do you perform them like that? Like, cause
I don't know. I
there's
guess
this
that,
way of performing it.
yeah, I don't know. I think I keep it real. I've never taken the theater of it though is more subtle.
Right.
I think I think there's a theater to every great teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I try to keep I keep my theater a little different. If I have humor and stuff, I think it's more wry, I guess. You know, but I think I also and I'm not saying they weren't though, definitely not Duma or something like that. But I keep it more a little bit more collegiate, official. You know what I'm saying? I try to make it like that. You know? I found that like where my gifts suit me, a lot of people we are always taught to talk to the level of the student and stuff. But I'm a different type of teacher, and that's why I clash many times with people, with elders that would be walking by doing the knowledge, because I have a tendency not to stay down. I have a tendency to go down and then pick them up. So I have a tendency to speak to them with a high language though, and then walk them through that language. You know what I'm saying? I don't want them to stay there. I'm going to use a big word, and then I want you to learn to interrupt me, to be interactive. I want you to interrupt me and ask me what these words are. I want you to expect that I'm using words that you should know and that you very well could know. I think to me, in my experience, it changes the student because they start to realize, well, you know what? I'm also can be in that cipher where I can get these high words. You know. So you know, it's like because look, the problem with people being students though is that they don't. You have to be comfortable feeling stupid. Like you have to actually go through a couple of lessons that you don't know anything that's talking about. Like that also happens with music. This is why people usually listen to bad music though. To listen to good music though, you have to actually listen to a lot of music that is said to be good, but you don't understand it yet. You know, so like with hip hop, most people, the reason today rap is like, you know, you kind of get all the lyrics pretty easily though. Even if it's heavy slang, it's so basic that you could memorize it and then figure out the slang because it's usually sexual or violent, right?
Right.
Or drugs. So it'll fit a category. You'll quickly figure it out sooner or later. They'll be like, hey, what does this mean? Oh yeah, that means this. You can't say. You know, like you'll figure out that it's what explicit level it's on. But like for example, I never listened to actual lyrics of any kind. Love songs different, but I was always into ballads though. But like actual lyrics of songs, like songs that were deeper, shit like that, I never listened to lyrics. And if you watch children's programming or things like that, when they would sing a song and it would be elaborate stories or lyrics about stuff, I never paid attention to that shit. You know, even when I watch Mr. Rogers, he had like they have stories in the lyrics. I never paid attention to any of that. I followed lyrics terribly. So, and I only started to listen to hip hop lyrics in high school. Never paid attention at all. People be rapping and I'll be like, I don't know what you're doing.
So you're intrigued by the rhythm more.
Yeah, it was always the rhythm. Yeah, and
in the melody.
In middle school, I was telling the guy King. In middle school, I didn't listen to music. It was only sports. I didn't know any songs, nothing. Like if you play EPMD or BDP, I don't know what that is.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I didn't know anything.
So you didn't start listening to hip hop until?
I didn't really start listening to hip hop until
high school.
High school, yeah. And I didn't listen because I didn't listen to any music. Music was whatever was around me though. But I didn't like, I want to hear this song. I never, you know.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was not part of my life.
For someone to pick it up at high school and then become like a writer of.
Right, because you see people say, I had music in my house. My father only played doo-wop. Only, that was it. So the oldie station, I heard Motown would creep in and things like that, and I loved ballads. So that's like the love songs, because you know you're a young kid, you want to get with the girls and stuff, and love songs was like the best thing. What's better than a ballad? In my head, like I was like, I ain't gonna do no dance song, you know. I'm not gonna be dancing like Michael and shit, like, right? But in high school, that's when I started to listen. I didn't listen to shit, you know what I mean? But like, so that feeling of listening to things and other people knowing what it says, and I can't even make out the words, let alone know the meaning. I know what that feels like. So like when I go into other types of music, like I listen to a Thelonious Monk record that I read about was supposed to be great. Like let's say I could read Brilliant Corners. That's what you start with Thelonious Monk. You're supposed to start with Brilliant Corners. I'm like, it sounds okay, but I don't see, and then it doesn't really have ballads though, right? So that's my trigger. If it's a ballad, I'm gonna see, right? It doesn't really have any, so I'm like, why is this considered so epic? You know, so I don't really understand. You know what I mean? And if you listen to Monk, I say Monk because a lot of stuff is very discordant.
Yeah, yes.
Right?
Right,
So you're
right,
like,
right.
he's actually sounds off. Like, it sounds terrible. Like, right? So you don't
Not
know.
terrible, but I mean, I know what you're saying.
No,
I mean,
like to the untrained ear, you don't know how
untrained ear.
much he's flipping it.
Right.
And then what happens is that people generally don't listen to music for the art form. That's something that hip hop put out there very overtly to this generation. But people don't listen for like, oh, this guy, I listen to this guy MC because he's got such skill level. Like people don't, right? When you listen to jazz though, a lot of the jazz you're listening to is not per se for the song, but it's for the skill in the song, like a Coltrane. Sometimes you're not really listening to the song for that. You're listening to the song for the skill that he exhibits on the song. You know? I didn't know how to listen to shit like that. The same thing with reading books. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be able to read difficult books, you actually have to have a couple of moments where you read books you don't really get much out of. And how much metal, like that METTLE, how much metal do you have to get through things? You know what I mean? And then pick one that is a little bit easier, but not so, you know, because valuing the book you read is an exercise. It's one of the most important teacher activities a student does. To pick a book for themselves to read, you know? We usually pick stuff really, really easy. You know what I'm saying? And then we don't really go too much farther. You know what I mean? So that's the level. You know what I'm saying? That's why people get, when they do reading, they do simple reading. You know what I'm saying? So, like I got good at reading all types of stuff. That stuff that is easy for other people is very difficult for me. So like a novel is very difficult for me to read.
You probably get bored.
Yeah, I get bored. It's not a real story.
Right.
It didn't happen.
That happens.
But like a real story, it could be the same story, but for a real person, real history, I'm in it. I'm all the way in it. You know, I read it much faster, even though it's more complex. You know, but the creativity is something I'm trying to get to, so I have to work at reading a novel too. You know what I mean? And I get through them though, but that's more hard work for me. You know?
So it's like a mental exercise. Really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So we always got to challenge ourselves. You know what I mean? So the student has to challenge themselves. You know what I mean? And some stuff that they think that they wouldn't have any fruit doing, though, they should try. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean try something that you totally hate the whole way. That's not the same thing. Like I have no joy drawing.
No, really.
I don't even like drawing with my daughter. Like I never liked and my other one when she was little. I'm like, this is so whack. Like I don't know what to draw. I don't know what to do. It comes out stupid. You know, and I'll draw if they're gonna indulge me and laugh at it, then I'll draw. You know what I'm saying? But it's I feel no creativity doing it. You know, I feel hindered.
No, that's interesting because I'm just like listening to like the evolution of Sunez, right? So right, you know, going from not listening to hip hop to listening to hip hop to writing.
But that's why, like, if high school is 1990 for me. First album that I bought 3 albums with my twin brother the first time, but the one that was the immediate classic, where it was both musically and lyrically, was Low End Theory. So that's the first time where I realized, like, I never heard something where both things were amazing to me. And that blew me away, you know what I'm saying? And as far as hip hop, I was in. I was like, everything has to be that epic like that, you know what I'm saying? And 1990, then you skip, and I said all this history in the interview, so it's fresh for me, but it's good to see why these things happen. 1990, and then I'm into hip hop, and then 1994 I published for the first time in college. So I'm writing about hip hop. So now I'm in a feverish thing where I want to write about hip hop, but I feel like I don't know enough. You know what I'm saying? I think when I started to write about hip hop in college, I probably had about 10 albums in hip hop, which even then is not that much. To me, I don't think it's enough. You know what I mean? Because by then I was just making pause tapes. So like for certain albums, like I feel how behind the 8 Ball. I'm writing, right? I actually don't have and have never heard. I heard all the songs because when I got it, I was like, oh shit, I heard all these. But I had never heard Paid in Full completely.
Oh.
Because I had never gotten the album. And I never noticed if somebody was playing the whole thing straight up. I never noticed. So, Public Enemy, I never heard the whole album straight. And those have cuts that aren't really played in the street. So,
Right.
you wouldn't know the way that they constructed the album, right? So, all these things, I was behind. So, that's what set up like a fever thing. At the same time, I'm in a Puerto Rican history class, and I'm embarrassed by the Puerto Rican professor because I'm coming in late thinking I'm gonna get an A.
I'm Puerto Rican, man.
Right, I'm Puerto Rican. But as I go along with the class, so the opposite happens. I realized that at the end of this class, these white kids that had to take this class, and all the other nationalities, they're gonna know about Puerto Rico as much as I do, and that's embarrassing to me. I start to be embarrassed by that. That's how little I know. They'll know as much as I do. That's pretty whack. You know what I'm saying? Right? And because of the way he's teaching, my professor, this is my first mentor, Dr. David Traverso. He's a revolutionary. So he's one of the students that took over Colgate University to get black and brown, studies programs. So I'm being radicalized. Like I'm totally militant by the end of the semester. You know what I mean? And so I become outspoken, all of these things. He's the first person that makes me lecture in front of classes about hip hop the next year. You know what I'm saying?
That's an exercise in itself.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exercise within itself. You know what I'm saying? And so all of these things, they push me further to the knowledge, but but they also have me forced to be comfortable catching up with a lot of stuff that I have no idea, I don't understand. So I thought the only way to prove that I understand is I have to understand all of the lyrics. Well, by the time I catch up, people don't really do what I do. They don't write reviews where they quote that much lyrics like that. They don't write reviews where they describe the way the beat sounds. So like if you didn't hear the beat, you would be like, I would like to hear that beat. You know what I mean? Like they don't really describe it like that. Everything is basically temperatures. This is hot, this is cold, this is hot, cold. That's how people write reviews. You know what I mean? This is banging, this is not, this is, so it's basically temperatures. You don't really get descriptions of music. But as I went along, because I was trying to learn about everything, it's jazz writers informed me, not hip hop writers. I learned how to write about music from reading jazz writers. That's why I always tell people Baraka is really my model, But what I was saying was, if I'm seriously listening in 1990, by 1994, I'm writing things about it. 1996, I'm published, like out there, like getting paid in Vibe in 6 years. That's why when people go, you never wrote a rhyme. Why would I write a rhyme? I didn't even understand the art form to write a rhyme when I first started. And then now I'm interviewing people that are incredible with the shit.
So like, I won't even go there with that.
Yeah, so some G-Rap, Killer Priest, these are some of my first interviews I ever did. So why would I, after you talk G-Rap, you're gonna write a rhyme? You're gonna think you could rhyme? Like, nah, man. And then I would interview people that were local or just starting and stuff, but when they tell me their history, they're like, yeah, I've been rhyming since I was 7 years old. Like, they'll say some shit like that. I'm like, damn, I kind of didn't put the years in. You know what I mean? Like, why would I even try to do that? And I didn't feel all those years I was trying to change journalism to be a creative expression for myself, as opposed to doing other elements of shit. That's why I didn't try to rhyme. I was like, no, I'm gonna make this the creative outlet and have people respect it creatively. It's just that people don't know that because in all the magazines I was in, they wouldn't let me put that in there. A lot of magazines published my work and erased the top. You know, so like if you notice, I put that poem on the top, or I have like the creative prose in the beginning.
Oh.
They would cut my shit off like frosting. You know what I mean? And a lot of my pieces don't have the tops. You know what I mean? Or they have reworked and reworded middles. You know? Because people, when you gave stuff to a magazine, they could change your wording, slice it, dice it. They don't send it back to you and say, oh, look, it needs to be 150 words, not 200. Can you cut it up? Now they cut it up themselves, so they cut it up with the way they think the voice should be. And now I read stuff that looks horrible to me. Most of the clippings I have from magazines I hate.
You kept the originals?
No, I didn't keep the originals.
No.
These are the days of floppy disks, guys. That shit never kept my stuff. I've lost so many things.
Oh, wow.
Man, you know the Peace Corps book I wrote is based on 2 major essays from 2003. That's the bulk of the book. You know, the Kind of Perfection, which I think is, which is what I thought of the idea because I was writing letters to gods, you know, like we all do, right? And I said, what would be the perfect letter to write somebody? All this knowledge of self. And that became that essay. And then the Blackest Pedagogy, the other one, is like what I intend my teaching reality to be. And so I kind of wrote my history. Publishing it now is kind of like it actually happened. But those essays, those things got deleted so many times. I wrote those. I remember once with the big, you know, you have the big desktop and stuff. I remember once when my oldest was little, she actually pressed the button off.
Oh.
God, I had to go into a different room. She was so tiny. I went into a different room, God. I closed the door and I just started punching things so that essay, I think it came out so good because those pieces, because I had to start them over so many times. So many things that I wrote up, they're lost. They're lost, you know? I don't feel no kind of way about it, though. I feel like all of that is bullshit, though. They just were like workouts, you know what I'm saying? But back then, you don't feel that way. Right?
Because you got to do it all over again.
All over again. It's just crazy, you know? But, yeah, that was crazy, you know? Because this is why, like, me and Dae's son, we always related, like, if people see us, right, we're like yin and yang, you know, our temperaments, you know, but the way we live was so similar. We're there, we're carrying notepads with us everywhere. You go to our homes, though, we have Post-it notes thrown everywhere, IDs everywhere. We wake up and there's pen and pad by the table. We wake up at night and we dribble shit, jot shit down that I'd wake up and it's like, I can't read it, you know what I mean? Like, or it sounds stupid, but what if I didn't roll over, you know, and write it down? It could have been dope, you know what I mean? And we don't throw anything away because what if it sounds better later? You know,
that's kind of like when I would sample beats or sample songs, and I'm like, after I sample it, it's like I don't like it, but now I have with Logic, I have Apple loops, so I get to keep them. So I may sample it, but then like a few weeks or months or even years later, I may come back to it like,
you might figure out how to use it a better way, right? That's the thing, yeah. Because to me, over the years, like people say, how you write? To me, writing is like they're like puzzle blocks, God. That's how it looks like in my head, though. Pieces, you know, puzzles. So they're like pieced together blocks. You know, this is why I don't write on paper well anymore. Because on the phone and definitely on the laptop, I could rearrange things easier. You know. So I don't know when people say that I only write on paper because that's a real writer writes, and I'm like,
well, okay, so that's a great segue, right? Because look, I've been fucking
I'm
with
the realest one here, like nigga, like don't tell me like the computers is no good to write.
Okay, so now I want to ask you because I wouldn't consider myself a writer, right? But I have these ideas in my head, and I've been fucking with ChatGPT.
Okay.
And it's a very interesting tool. Now, fucking with it. Now you came to mind because I know that you're a writer. You're really a writer, and this kind of, it's really like a cheat code in many ways. Chat GPT. I have basic ideas in my head of something, or maybe I have ADD that I might just go from one idea to the next idea, and I never really flesh it all the way out. Whereas with this, I could put in a few ideas, and it helps me flesh it all out. So I just wanted to know, what is your take on?
I never used it.
You've never used ChatGPT?
No, but I don't want to. I don't want anybody to help me.
Okay.
Because part of the headache is putting it together. That's part of what makes it genuine to me.
Okay.
I need to put it together the way I see fit. Also, too, I see it the way, I'm big on Miles Davis, everything. And Miles Davis, he used to diss Ornette Coleman, who, it's unfair because Ornette Coleman is great, but he used to say, he don't even know how to play right. How could he break the rules if he doesn't know how to play right? So I always see that, you have to know the rules so good that you could break them. So, I wouldn't want some type of algorithm that could try to figure out the way I'm breaking the rules.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I don't think that...
yeah, it's not good for that.
Yeah.
It's not good to, kind of...
Because a lot of things, when I write, though, autocorrect is horrible to me. Especially on the text, it's horrible.
Yeah.
I need to break rules. I need to do it different. I need to, you know what I'm saying? So,
Well, I find it useful. Like for instance, I might have a few ideas for a treatment of a music video or something like that. So I could just put in a few ideas, and I don't, maybe I might be a little bit too lazy to turn it into actual real treatment. I just throw it in there, and it just puts everything in its proper. But what it's called now is more like a you would call it a prompt engineer. So what a prompt engineer, what prompts to put into it. You know how to guide the algorithm or guide the technology in a way that it actually responds to you the way that you want it to be.
That sounds so evil.
That's what I figured that you would say that.
Yeah.
It sounds evil, but it's a very interesting tool. A very interesting tool. I mean, at least for me, like I said, I'm not a writer like you. I don't have that discipline of writing in that fashion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it gives me
I try to use tools I also think this is a thing I haven't said, but I think everyone should have a dictionary. It sounds crazy because we always say that, but not just an online dictionary, but an actual physical dictionary. You can use an online dictionary, but you can only look up words that you need to know. You cannot find words in a dictionary.
Right.
So it's good to have a great dictionary because sometimes I'll look through the dictionary just for words. You know what I mean? Just the words that sound good or appeal to what I'm doing. You know what I mean? For example, I love using acronyms. Not acronyms, but alliterate. I love to alliterate a lot of times, where you're writing words in sequence, but they all start with the same letter. Or deeper alliteration, where it's almost like the beginning rhyme, where the beginning is starting out with the same couplets of letters. And for example, you would need a dictionary for that, to find those kind of words like that. You know what I'm saying? To look through the A's, the B's, And certain writers, I'm trying to remember his name. Ernest Hemingway, he wrote a book on writing, and he said this so bougie, but he was if you haven't read the whole dictionary, then you're not a real writer. He actually expects you to read the whole dictionary, and for him that's probably meaning knowing all the words. So he saw it as a field of operation. If you don't know all the words, though, how you writing? I haven't been able to read the whole dictionary, but I love that concept, because now
Malcolm X read the dictionary.
Right.
According to the story, right? And his language elevated, you know.
Oh yeah, enormously, yeah. You know? And of course reading is the best cheat for that, because you're gonna get words written in context, so you get it faster, you know what I mean? And of course the digital books are better because you could have a library inside there too. You could write your notes in there, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of digital stuff that I love, you know. But I don't want any help like that. Two things I use, right? Dictionaries, of course. So if I write rhymes, though, sometimes I will use a rhyme dictionary. I will use a rhyme dictionary. Like I want to know.
I mean, so that's like almost the same thing then.
But it's like, but no, because I'm still choosing the word. It's not being chosen for me.
Well,
like
kind of.
There's a difference between a word being suggested for you than seeing a whole list of words that go. So if I open a dictionary and I say I want to alliterate with the word, the letter B, then I'll be looking at, let's say I want it to be a BL word, I'm looking through the BLs. It's kind of the same thing. I'm getting an idea of words though, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes if I use a rhyme dictionary or look up a word, I may not even use that word though. You know what I'm saying? So it's just to see more choices and stuff. So the writer has to do all he can though to give himself more choices though. But my problem is the direct suggestion. Because with what you're saying is not only suggesting words, but suggesting style. Or being almost able to continue the style that you were trying to go for. And that's the thing. I want to be able to veer against whatever style I might be going with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I'm just trying to think, because the way this artificial intelligence as is really like a collection of a whole bunch of different styles, and I think it recognizes that, and then it's like, okay, you're speaking like this. Okay, we're gonna continue to write like this. You know, so it is very can be it's a little daunting, you know. Yeah. But I was really wanted to come talk to you about it. I know like you're against that. Like it's almost like
for a writer, yeah, I'm definitely against it. I think that I have so much stuff I've written. If I inputted it, it could probably make something that would sound like me. Maybe I would even like it, but then I would be mad if it came up with some shit that I would write.
Oh, so you would be mad?
I'd be mad. You know what I'm saying? So then, why would I put myself through that anger?
Or better yet, let's say you take a paragraph that you've written and then you input it into it and you say, turn this into a three episode series. So that's what I find is useful at. You see what I'm saying? Like you could turn it like, all right, but you got to know what to put into it. You got to give it direction.
You could put things into a different format.
Right.
But that's part of the work, though.
Yeah.
You know, and like that difficult brain work is stuff that I would like to do. You know what I'm saying? Especially on the creative level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think professionally, like if I was putting things in different professional formats,
Peace.
I would definitely like to use that, but not creative stuff. Peace is God.
Peace God.
Everything is peace, God. Alright. Talking about creativity, one of the most creative walks in.
Peace. Peace already.
How you doing? Well. Seeing God. Peace. Yeah, I definitely want to get your take on this conversation that we're having on. I don't know. Have you ever messed with ChatGPT?
I have not, God. I've been
another probably purist, right?
Yo, you know what, God? Like honestly, I've been introduced to it. My cousin came over and sat with me and told me about his experience with it, right. and my black woman told me about it too. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And she had been dabbling it and using it to get a lot of things done. Right. I've been skeptical about that since it was introduced, but at the same time, I see some of the value in it. I see how it could be beneficial in certain regards. I just see a lot of things happening within the world that are making people peace. That are
it's phony, right? Yeah. I put it in the front, the front table.
I see the world like kind of leaning too much on on machines in general.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you know, it's
But these are tools that
these are tools, and
you can't get caught up in tools like this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's something that has benefits, and it's something that that also has setbacks too. You know, recently is a couple of lawyers that got into some trouble because I think like they had ChatGPT prepare like their opening statements and things like that, and it ended up causing some major problems in the courtroom. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say too much. You know what I'm saying? Until I really get my hands on it to really utilize it. But so far, I've been a little hesitant. I got introduced to it, and I do see some of the benefits.
Right.
So, you know, when I get my cipher back online, my laptop, I might explore with it. But I'm also like in my head about actually having that presence like fixed on my devices as well. You know what I mean?
Well, I fucked with it, and I do see the value, right? I see that. See, I'm not a writer though. You know what I'm saying? I don't come from that discipline of actually being, you know, like having that penmanship like that. But you know, I do have like a lot of ideas that float through my mind, and sometimes like, you know, capturing those things and then fleshing them out might be maybe a little bit of a challenge for me, right? So what I do is I might take it, an idea, and I can put it into it, and it'll help flesh it out for me. Like for instance, like let's say if I had like decide to do a music video with you, right? And I know the lyrics, I know what it is, and I know, you know, okay, this is the idea, this is what I see. I jot those ideas now, and I could just put those random ideas and say, turn this into a treatment for a video, and it'll outline it for me. You see what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
So it's kind of like, you know, like it's a new term that's coming out called being a prompt engineer. Knowing
I'm
what
familiar.
Right.
I'm actually familiar.
Right. So being a prompt, so you know how to
Know what questions to ask.
Right. You know how to input the prompts. You know how to. So it's not like. I mean, it is doing something for you. It's a tool, but it's not doing it all for you. And you got to know exactly what direction you got to give it the direction. You know what I'm saying? You're the.
I appreciate that, Aaron.
You're the founder of it, as opposed to it being founder of you. You just got to see it that way.
I get it, you know, and again, I see the value. I know and understand that, you know, in a certain sense, this has already been done.
That's peace out to you. Look forward to hearing it.
For a long time now, just off of how we're using Google and things like that too.
Right. It's a glorified Google.
Right.
Yeah.
So I see that too. At the same time, I see the value. Like if we had a project we're working on, a music video, just as an example, since you just used that, like one of the things that I've been seeing a lot more value in and being more grateful for is actually having a team, having a group of brothers and sisters that could do the same thing that ChatGPT might do, just with the human touch and with the sense of actually knowing me a lot more personally, to be able to really create what is needed, right? Because you know, and not to take away, I think that tool, from what I've already seen, like it's extraordinary what people are doing with this tool on all levels. I've seen some really dope graphic design work. I've seen some folks use it to write books and do a couple of things too. I would love, yes. I mean, it's a cheat. It's a cheat code. It's a huge cheat code. And that's the thing, though, right? Because as a creator myself, I'm working on a book. I'm working on a couple of things. I can't see artificial intelligence. I can't see putting my ideas into that machine and make it come out for me. Like it's got to come. It's a certain kind of satisfaction and a certain kind of connection that I have with that story and me telling it. So you know what I mean? Like I'm still a little hesitant to use it in those regards.
No, I could dig it. No, I wanted to bring it to him, you know, because he's the purist.
I already know the guys. I already know the guys.
He's like, nah, I'm not, you know. But you mentioned like some of the tools that you do use, right? And I would liken it to that as well. You know what I'm saying? Like it's similar to that, although it is a
Well,
cheat
like
code.
for example, right? If I write a rhyme and I use a rhyme dictionary, right? I still had to figure out the first rhyme.
Yeah, and that's
Right?
and that's what I'm trying to get
And I
at.
still have to select it and see how it goes, because words could rhyme though, but they don't fit the flow either.
Mhm.
Words that rhyme don't always fit the flow. Like they actually could fuck that up. So it's difficult. Also too, like just the reason it sounds purist is, but people see me have all these books though. I've been writing this heavy for half my life. You know what I mean? So put that work in though. Fuck. You know what I mean? You're gonna put something out that just punch this shit out. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
It's just terrible.
it could be that, but I think that like for instance, was it like editing a book or something, right? Or editing something like it help
Right.
you do that.
But I get paid for that too. And people hire me to edit something to keep their voice. And if you got a machine that's keeping people's voices and shit, that's my job.
Yo, you see, even
the sounds of
saying
capitalism.
Nah, God, but like even with that, G, because it's like, you know, when you got to call up to deal with customer service, dealing with credit cards, different companies or whatnot, and you got to use your voice already, like to do that. Like that's always been an issue for me. I much rather deal with a person. I don't like the idea that my own voice could be on my
yeah.
image or
Yeah,
whatnot,
that
could
too.
be then
I don't like that
manipulated
either. I don't
and
like it
flipped
either.
and used,
Right.
and it ain't really me, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that's always in the mind when it comes to this.
Intellectual property.
Right, God, right. You know what I'm saying? Because like we've seen a lot of stuff now where it's like, oh yeah, here go Biggie spitting prodigies versus whatnot. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, ah
That's
man,
really whack.
I'm not really with
That's
that.
right.
I'm not
That's right.
really with that. I don't care who's endorsing it, but I think it takes away from
It
what was
does.
originally
I agree with
created,
that.
right? And then look, the example that the God just used, where he's been writing and compiling his intellectual property for years, and the way that he writes is very unique, right?
Absolutely.
I could see maybe the computer being fed information so that it can mimic or create something similar. But look, he put in a lot of work to be able to churn out project like that. The more that you do a couple of push-ups, like the more you're able to do as you build your body. And it's the same way with what he's been doing with his craft and his art. So, you know, for somebody else then to just come along and then have this cheat code and then be I don't know, even made to look like it. It's an even playing field. Like that's not something that sits well with me.
Well, and I agree. I agree with that. I'm just saying as a tool, like so that all the work that you have, you
Yeah.
can contextualize it a certain way. You know what I'm saying? In different ways. Like I'll say, well now you can say like, all right, well I have these poems. I want to put these poems into a book, or I want to do it this way, or I want to turn it into a movie, or you know, like you see what I'm saying? It's
In the
you can take the same
on the
thing.
technical level, maybe, but on a creative level, I could never see it. Because even the transfer of credit. Because look, we're talking about making music after all those years, writing about this stuff here, right? That's what makes it more genuine to me. That I spent all these years around, you probably couldn't find another person that has ever made an album after being with that many artists. There's probably nobody in the world that has been around hundreds and hundreds of artists and then made albums. There's only a few. You know what I'm saying? There's only a few. There are a couple though. There are a couple, but not in this genre. You know what I mean? But the all of that particular work though gives me a whole. It's not just one style. It's many styles.
Yeah.
And then it's also the style that wasn't done yet. Right? KRS One shit. The style you haven't done yet, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so when I write, I could be going back and doing it the way I did it in 2000, or I could be doing it the way I did it in 2004. Like people will read, if you read the Peace Corps book, right? You're reading the way I wrote builds in 2003, and then more creative builds in 2003. If you, I don't write like that now.
I think,
You know what I'm saying?
I think again, like in your case, God, is something really unique, right? Because even in today, like there are a lot of artists, up and coming artists now, that don't really have a connection to the past. Just like all things, right? At a certain passage of time is somewhat of a disconnect from the root. And so that then produces a different kind of art within itself, right? And so right now, being the fact that you spent so many years coming at this in a pure way and documenting and studying. That's why, like, and even in how you're describing what you're covering and what you're examining, like the depth, the detail, the different technical aspects of things. There are not a lot of people that look at it through that lens or study it in that lens. So then now, when it comes time for you to actually create and be a creator in that realm, like you're going to stand apart from somebody that hasn't been doing that kind of diligent studying and appreciating the art in that kind of way. And so, it's the same way where you got DJs that they DJ for years and then they all of a sudden become a producer. They have a certain kind of ear for music, and so they shine. You know what I mean? And so, I think that this is what also applies to you too.
Yeah, yeah. The experience of things, like, could never accumulate the experience. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I am grossed out by it though.
No, I knew you would. But I'm just saying to consider it.
I would be grossed out if somebody took all of my books, funneled them into a program, and said this would be his next poetry book. And I would be
that's whack. That's whack.
Disgusted by how corny that would be. You know what I'm
saying?
But
I'm just thinking but instead of somebody else doing it, you being the engineer behind it, of how.
Let me tell you how. If I wrote the way I write, you guys know me. If I did that, I put my works and said, make a poetry book out of all this poetry I have and everything.
No, I'm not saying that.
And construct a new one. Let's say I did it and I put it in there.
That would be kind of.
Then I would take that book though, and I would never publish it, but I would work and outright that book. And then that would be the whack book. Like, I still would be like, fuck you, and I would try to outright the book that was using my own shit. Like,
It's
I could never let it stand.
I liken it to like the Industrial Revolution, and as we know, at this point in time, there are a lot of problems that came out of that. However, it also sped up production, and I guess that's what this is. It's like it speeds up production, but there is a shift.
Absolutely.
A lot of things that is kind of fucked up.
Oh, you talk about the Industrial Revolution, right? We can definitely see some pros and cons that came out of that, right?
Yes.
If we look at the realm of agriculture, right, because the Industrial Revolution had a great impact on agriculture, right?
Right, exactly.
So now instead of people having growing food for themselves, then now this becomes a responsibility of a body outside of self. It's less control. You're going to have to accept what's given to you. And then, you know what I'm saying, now you got to deal with greed. You got to deal with all the other things that come out of this too. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of pros and cons to really look at when it comes to all things though, right?
Yeah.
So
what's interesting is that this whole thing, like, people think that it would help them, industrialization, it would help them do certain technical tasks and shit like that. It affects our people the most though, because we're the ones that are more invested in the creative works. The creative works keep us alive, and the more that they dehumanize and the more that they simplify. That's why when they see people like me and they say, oh, he just wants to keep it real and keep everything right and this and that. But we are actually devalued the shittier that music and the arts become. Because the easier it is to make the music and the arts, though, the more that we could be ousted on that and industrialized. And this is one of the biggest fields of operation that we have. Like, let's keep it real. Like, we're oppressed people. Our arts and entertainment, though, are a big part of our industry.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Come on, you know what I'm saying? There's no way around that.
Agreed. But as the creators too, God, like, it's natural for us to shine in these realms too, right? And this is why, like, our people are always at the forefront of creation and all things, though, right? When it comes to the example we just used, talking about commercialization, right? Agriculture and farming became commercialized through the Industrial Revolution, and what I'm saying, we see the results of that all the way today now, dealing with genetically modified foods and all kind of things like that. But we got genetically modified music because of the commercialization of this as well too.
Absolutely.
Right? So it needs to be examined. We really need to take a look and see what it is that we're dealing with and deal with a certain degree of control, right? again, like the pros though can't be ignored. On the way over here, I think I came across something, and it's not the first time where AI is being used to like translate text from like 5,000 years ago, some cuneiform and shit like that, right? So I'm interested to see what comes out of that. But then I'm also mindful of who it is that's creating this too, right? Because in the same way that we're using the computer, we know that the person who programs the computer, right? Like what you're dealing with is their mind. They whatever's getting put in is gonna get spit back out, right? And so that in the same way that eyes that are not ours can look at our history, look at writings on temple walls or whatever, and be like, oh yo, these people are worshiping deities with dog heads and hawk heads and stuff like that, and misunderstand that. You know what I'm saying? Like the same thing could be done like now with this as well. So you know, I'm watching and I'm being careful like all things. I gotta know a lot more before I really, you know what I'm saying, could speak out a lot about it. And for me, it's still a lot to learn when it comes to this AI world. You know?
Yeah, it's a slow descent. You know, and I'm saying that because like in the writing world, like I'm looking at the magazine that I'm in this magazine plug, but the magazines were always a problem for me because it was a conveyor belt. So if I hand you an article, the editor goes through one editor, other editor, and they put it into the sound that they think the magazine should have as a whole. That's why when you read any magazine, it sounds like one guy wrote everything. You know what I'm saying? And then only a certain spotlight column sounds different. But that's not the way it always was. Like, important journalists, like I talk about Gay Talese a lot because hip hop took a lot of that. You know, in the writing, you know, where he started contemporary journalism, where you would write your pieces about it. Like, say we do an Omnip 07 feature, but back then in the days they would hang out with you for like a couple of weeks though to do the feature.
To get to know.
So this feature is not like 5 pages though. This shit is like 10, 15, 20 pages inside a magazine. There's no way that you could sanitize a writer's voice. It's too many pages. It's too long, too individually experienced. You know, to make it sound uniform to the rest of the magazine. And then he would tell the story like fiction. And that was like one of his innovations and shit like that. Like one of his biggest articles was Frank Sinatra has a cold, because he had a cold when he was with him. But he was with him for like, it was like a 35-page article. You don't get magazines with a 35-page article.
Pages, that's a lot.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's enormous and shit. You know what I mean? So all of his biases, a lot of personal shit goes in there, even by default, because you're writing so much. But over the years, they continue to make it smaller, format it. You do this, you say this, you cover these points, you do these things. You have all of these things, and then it becomes smaller, easier to read, smaller, easier to read. Everything becomes less, smaller, easier, and more compact. This section, that section, and pretty soon, whatever you give them is going to be sanitized into that. So it's perfect for this type of world, especially for the blog world, right? We're really in a post-blog world where people don't even want that, you know? So it just becomes crazier. Like what you're going to have is, why have actual humans say these things that are so sanitized when we can have robots, augmented humans looking, you know what I'm saying? Like you could have, what's the thing, holograms of humans just giving out this information. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're real far right now, right? Because like we even talk about now that they want to do like neural links and all this shit, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of far, and this is why like even though for me like it's still an early introduction, you know, to this AI world, I'm no fool. I know that. I remember being a little boy and late night on TV, there'd be this show that would come on, MASH. You know what I'm saying? And it also was Miami Vice and shit too, right? And the reason why I bring up those two shows in particular is because that's like when the first I seen cell phones, right? Like the military had cell phones way before the public did it. Like that was being used in the Vietnam War, right? You know what I'm saying? And so the public got access to that in the 80s and such, you see what I'm saying? So we're being introduced to AI now, but how long has it really been, you know what I'm saying, been used and being applied? And then what because of that, then what's the next thing we're gonna see, since we already talked about neural links, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, it's like you know the art form, like it's like hip hop. We talking about hip hop, right? Hip hop was originally an art form, but then it turned into a business.
Mm-hmm.
So like you talk about the music business versus the music art form, and we see that the business has damaged the art form.
It's changed the art form.
It's
How a lot of people create.
Well, yeah, right. So that kind of like brings me to like the question about like you know like because a lot of times you hear the term culture vulture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And well, from what I can see now, like the culture vulture is very much a part of the culture.
Oh man, I mean, you know, hip hop is 50 years old this year, you know, and really,
But even in the black community,
right? But like even like, but just putting that under the microscope for us to take a look at it. The truth is that, you know what I mean, the history is even deeper than that, right? Than this 50-year mark. And so now, like as far as the business and execs being involved, they've been in it for a minute. So like the direction and like and how music is provided and consumed now, like that's been something that's been controlled for a little while. You know, like we've been on this path for a while, and that's also why, like, you know, it's coming full circle now, because, you know, it's interesting to see now with like all the subgenres that exist. You know, with how far we are, there's so many people now that actually see more value in the earlier forms of how hip hop was created and the earlier artists and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like even right now, you know, it's dope to be seeing a lot of new artists taking songs from the '90s and then trying to flip it up.
so that's kind of like how we was doing. Like
Right. But it's something that is that they are recognizing exists within this span of time that is not present today. You see that they want to tap back into, you know what I mean, to give out or to give life again, right? Or to, you know, develop self or the art form.
And that's really speaking to the true artists that are doing that, or people who are more art, you know, have the mindset of art.
Sure.
As opposed to like when I say like the culture vulture, like someone like a Leo Cohen or even like a Vlad TV or, you know, these guys. But if you look at the culture, right, or if you look at where it's at now, the business of it would the business of it be the same way without the culture vulture? Because they made it, or they've taken it into places where now we're making money off of it. We're not just enjoying it now; we're making money. Now it's a business.
I think without the vultures, without the people that have been benefiting from the negative aspects of this if they were not present, I think it'd be a different landscape, a different world,
very
right?
much.
Because it's like if it's the same thing where if something doesn't belong to you, it's easy to take it for granted. If you ain't worked to create something, it's easy to not appreciate it and care for it the way that it should, right? Like you bring up Leo Cohen, right? I think that even him, right? Because it's often a question as like, why even make the devil, right? But like, yo, look, it was an interview where he got asked, like, yo, you know, about his involvement with the shit, and if he promotes, you know what I'm saying, some of the negativity and shit. He's like, oh, you know, nah. But then, you know, I gotta feed my family still and shit, right? And so I think like that was a very important moment for like the world to be able to take a look at, though, right? Because it's very clear that that the music is being weaponized,
Absolutely.
right? And so you know, you got to look at who's holding a weapon and who's getting cut down by the weapon. You know,
that's very important, and that's why I say, like, I mean, that's where the culture, or the hip hop culture, that's where it's at now, because it's being weaponized against us, and not only it's being weaponized against us because we've sold it to the highest bidder, like, you got that money for me? Well, I'll do a song and dance for you because you got that money. And I now gotta feed my family.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
so, and this is what appears to appease the culture vulture who's gonna take it and monetize it and turn it into, you see what I'm saying?
See, God, again, like, you know, like, time is such a big factor when it comes to all of this too, though, right? Because, you know, after a certain amount of time, now the people are realizing the value and what was created like years ago too, and that it shouldn't have been given up for money, for whatever, you know what I'm saying, little amounts of money. And the pioneers didn't really receive a lot of money. You know, they were exploited, and a lot of other folks got the money. You see what I'm saying? And look, I'm gonna give you an example, right? Because as a little boy, I had a limited amount of toys because, you know, like, money wasn't there like that for that. You know what I mean? Years down the line, it's certain toys that I cherish, and we had to make our own things too, right? Some of the things that we made, had we known, you know, they could have been, and had we had the resources, we could have had some stuff on the shelf and made some bread off of that. But even aside from that, a couple of years ago, they put out this show on Netflix, and it's a remake of Voltron. I got the chance to introduce that to my children. Like, yo, this shit's so dope. I used to watch this when I was a little boy. I want to see what they do with it, right? And it was dope, with the exception of like one or two little things, right? But then what that opened up the door for is, I went and I showed my children, like, yo, listen, let's look it up. These are the toys that I had a black line and this and that. What are they worth today? And when we did that, it's everybody like, hold up. You know, we're going to have to move a little differently. So what I started doing with my children was like, all right, if we're going to pick up toys or anything, here goes something you could play with. But this right here, you're going to hold on to until you're an adult. And now you might be able to auction it, sell it for X amount of bread, right? Same way with comic books and different things like that. Like hip hop, the art form, so many different things. Like Biggie's crown, which the crowd I was made just was being auctioned for a lot of money too. That he wore in that iconic picture.
Crown, right?
Yeah, like it wasn't something crazy, but, you know, under the right lighting and such, and because it was kept, it became something iconic, and it has value, way more value than it did at the time. You see? And so it's so much. What about the fur coat that Slick Rick first wore that was somebody's grandmother's and all that? There's a lot of different things, God, you know what I'm saying, that are really valuable. And when you're talking about the voice of our people, the minds of our people, you know, our stories, it's all interwoven in this art form. You know, this is something that years down the line, people could take a look at and be like, oh, this is what was happening. This is where we were at in the mind here and how we were living. So there's a lot of value you can't put a dollar sign next to it.
Can't put a dollar sign next to it. But see, a lot of times we give it to the culture vulture, and so they can give us some, you know, Federal Reserve notes, and then that goes into our discussion about capitalism. Like, you know, we always, him and I go back and forth about, you know, the science of capitalism, right? And capitalism and how destructive it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause you saying like, yo, there's money. Like, well, you know, you know, can our culture, our expressions, you know, our thoughts be monetized in that way? For a Federal Reserve knows, like, so let's say, you know, so look at, like, let's say, you know, like Def Jam. I always use this example. Def Jam was sold for upwards of, you know, $700-800 million. Right? So if somebody gives you $800 for your catalog, you probably like, well, yeah, wow, like, you know, right away. But then the size of inflation, that $700,000 this year could be worth, you know, $1. You know what I'm saying? Like with the size of inflation. So, and the value of what we giving them continues to go up, but the value of what they gave us goes down.
See, and that's the thing though too, right? Because it's one thing if you say this is what this is worth,
right?
What I want for it, right? Right, like, look, I have certain things that I'm doing, and because what I'm creating is of a certain value to me, I'm not putting out what I'm creating for 99 cents a download, like how a lot of people are doing it with their songs. You see, even though like the machine has been set up like this for a minute, it took time, energy, and a lot of money in order to to create it. So you know the sign, you know what it is, you know what I'm saying? And mixing it and mastering it and creating a packaging merchant, it takes a lot for somebody in my position alone to then turn around and just give it away for crumbs. You see, so it's a different thing where it's like, all right, now I recognize my worth, and I'm not gonna compromise that. You know, I know that, you know, could I use $1 million? If somebody says I'm gonna give you $1 million for the kid, I could use it, but I'm not gonna take that because this is worth more, and I know that down the line this is gonna be so much more. You know, like my great grandchildren are gonna be able to be like, yo, that's who my great grandfather was. Like this, how he saw the world, this is how he was moving through it. Like that's super valuable. I'm not gonna give that away. You know what I'm saying?
But a lot of times we do give that away.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
No, you're not doing it. I mean, because you got the knowledge of yourself, right? There's a lot of you know, majority of the people, 85%, they don't have that. Like, cause I'm just thinking about, you know, the different business models of Bob Johnson, Barry Gordy, Russell Simmons. They all sold their companies, and you know, for this, to have that foresight of damn, you know, I could pass this down to my children. Now, it's been weaponized. It's in turn, we sold it to the highest bidder. It's been weaponized, and now we don't have control over it, and all we could do is boo-hoo about it.
Nah, G, I refuse to take that position, right? Because for one, to just one thing, right? It's like it's a different time, and there are a lot of people waking up to this and taking more responsibility and ownership of what they create, including Bill Powers. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of folks that's like, yo, you know what? I'm gonna do a band camp. I'm gonna do my own shit so I could get more bread and not just have it out here like that, right? But then, in addition to that, G, you know, I think that we don't have to just complain and boo-hoo about it. I think now is more the time where it's like, all right, you see it like how I see it, let's work together. You got 1,000 people that I don't know and vice versa. Let's come together, and then now we can handle marketing and promoting and doing a lot of things and run this on our own.
Right.
But then it takes, you know what I'm saying, having a certain mindset.
It takes us coming together.
Indeed.
That's a sign
That's a huge part of it.
And a lot of times we overlook that coming together.
That's the biggest, I mean, that's the solution for most of our problems, guys.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we was adding on about this, you know what I mean, the other day too, because again, like in our family units and just in our networks, it's like if you need an editor, if you need an accountant, if you need somebody that has experience in the medical field, if you need somebody that is an electrician, like it's all here within our families, within our cycles. So it's like, why go outside of that? You know what I'm saying? If you don't need to. It's good to do trading. It's good to deal with folks. Like it's mad important to have connections on every corner of the globe, G. You know what I'm saying? But like it could still be us. It could still be family. It could still be our network in order to see success.
It seems like we don't. I mean, cut your wisdom, but it seems like we don't. That's a minority mindset, or you know, the small, like the 5% mindset, because. Like, I mean, even like RZA just sold his catalog, at least for what I heard. He just sold like the catalog of the Wu-Tang to
I
a
didn't
company.
hear that until just now.
Yeah, see, I heard he did, right? Right. So and Timberland, like, so this is like a trend. Like, you sell it like, yo, I could get, you know, like if I was on my own, right now it might make $100,000 a year per se, right? You know what I'm saying? I may make a couple $100,000, but I sell it to them for like $500 million. You know, I just cut my time in half. Like, fuck it, I could just do it all over again. And that seems to be the trend in the mindset of people. You see what I'm saying? Like, so it's a multi-layered conversation and dealing with, you know, the culture bullshit, how involved the culture bullshit is, or how important the culture bullshit is to the culture. You know, like the signs of industrial revolution, getting paid, or is it the music business, or is it the art form? Like what? Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to where you placing your values at. You know what I'm saying? Us as a people, as a collective. I mean, you know, you as an individual, you have already decided like, well, this is how I'll place my values. And I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna build with the guards about it. But not everybody has this.
Yeah,
you
for
see
sure,
what I'm saying?
for sure. And again, it's like, we gonna have to see, because time is gonna tell too whether or not those were wise decisions. You know what I'm saying? Like, those brothers have already reached a certain pinnacle of success. They may have other things set up for what they're gonna do with it. Maybe they have plans to buy it back later on. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I just know that the people.
You think the people want to be able to sell it back? Like,
I know that it's never that easy.
It's never that easy,
that
right.
easy. But I do know that. What I do know is I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what's in their minds. I don't know what they have planned out. I know what I want to do, and I'm still developing certain techniques, certain strategies, certain things to do to become more successful and to reach more people. I also just see the value in connecting with other brothers and sisters that see it like me and are willing to do the work like me, you know what I'm saying, and not lose time, you know, dealing with folks that don't, you know what I'm saying?
That's important.
You know what's interesting is that when Fidel Castro talked about the foundation of how to change the whole society, he's very similar to us in that he was saying that education was the main key and that culture was to change education to change the culture. And if the culture of the people was right, because of the knowledge, they would live the right way. Now, those are two principles in our supreme math, right? I always look at things from the vantage point of my own self. So most media, when they wrote critically about music, they always criticized the record labels, things that weren't them. But I always felt it from the angle that I was at, or what I wasn't seeing. I think that in general, not just music, but everything, our youth, this generation, and as it continues to grow, and our age group too, because it's really our age group fucking up too. There's no education and appreciation of the worth of creativity. And I say that because that's kind of like, that's really the work of what a music journalist is. It's music appreciation. People think it's diss and whack songs and shit like that, but that's only to equalize. Well, you like that bullshit though. Let me tell you why that's fucked up, so that way you can understand how dope this is. You know what I mean? So if you see some idiot, if someone hears Kenny G, it sounds nice to people, but then I have to tell them like, this is some bullshit right here. I'm gonna show you about Coltrane. Like, yeah, I'm showing extremes here, but like, we have to dumb down and we have to show where Kenny G really is to show you how dope Coltrane is, or else you'll never appreciate, right? Mm-hmm. The youth don't have any appreciation of our creativity, like the depths it goes to, how difficult it is to create the work. Like, what's the right if there's no hell in it? Because when I teach Love Hella Right, I always say it's work. It's not outside. Most of the build in Love Hella Right is outside of ourselves, and I've always disagreed with that because there's no mystery God, and we already decided in the 10th degree not to wait for a mystery God, and that there is no mystery God. So how would the hell be something imposed on us? So I always like to look at proactively, what's the hell that we go through? What's the work? And the work you go through to do something great is some crazy shit. Like, you can make some insurmountable shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, right, you say, oh, I'm gonna write all this and shit. You know what I mean? Like, what could be the next thing? You know, like, when I wrote, I didn't go out and say, listen, I'm gonna write about fucking 400 records in a year. Nobody would say to do that. But I was like, yo, let's try some crazy shit. That's what I think people need to know. So a little bit by a little, I took it like, you know, small pieces of a mountain and shit like that. Now, by the end of the year, that first time I did it, that shit was, I was killing myself. I was listening to music all night, then I had to like detox listening. I listened to other music to detox the sound and shit like that, right? Then go back and keep going, right? And by the time I hated music by the end of that first book, right? But the thing is that, like, I think that the education is off, God. We're not teaching people what creativity really is, and that creativity is a value of the work that you put in to make something that, to the best of your ability, expresses you so uniquely that it doesn't exist prior to you making it. You see what I'm saying? That you put that much work into it. And then for the person that already creates, so that omnipotent will make something that didn't exist before from his own work. You know what I'm saying? Whereas like now creativity is the guy that makes a lot of shit though, he'll just make the same type of shit that he always made because people fuck with that. So and look, that's most fans. They expect the same type of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like when I made this album, I'm not saying that I'm nowhere near incredible MC. But there's no way I said shit on that record that anybody heard before. I made sure of that. But the first thing I heard that was kind of a naysay thing or a surprise that people said was like, you said it like a compliment, 07, right? But some people said like, you know, like, it's so many different styles that you did. I didn't know. Like, they didn't know I was a human, that I had all these ideas. So it's like, we like things the same way. We want a certain, you know, like, you're supposed to give us a flavor and then we get strawberry for the whole album. You know, we get vanilla for this whole album. And that's not creativity. That's not creativity at all. You know, it's funny that 07 is here because he has fucked with me in many years, rhyming dope on beats that I wasn't so heavy on. You know what I'm saying? And I would have to be like, oh, well, I like it when you do it. You know, like, because I wouldn't like it if anybody else did it. But then it showed me the emceeing prowess, like the ability of the MC to make a complete song. You know what I'm saying? It changes the parameters of what making a complete song is. So now when I write about it, I have to talk about these sensibilities and how they got erupted and destroyed. You know what I'm saying? And then the people that read it get an idea about creativity, but it's about teaching creativity. This is why this is so important to me, because if we're teaching people, I'm not teaching anybody to be God or Earth. They were already naturally that. But the activity to be that is like, yo, be creative. You have to be creative somehow. How could you be creative? Then if somebody engages though, right? If I make them engage in assignments, creative writing, write some poetry, they think it's bullshit, like it came out horrible, they'll never write in their journal and be honest though, come up with new words, because they can't describe what they live today, and they want to. Now it means something. And then now when they do something that has nothing to seemingly do with creation, I don't know, architect, something else, right? They create parameters that didn't exist. That's how we create a world. So the world that they create that isn't considered creative, though, is being created, right? How do we change this building, right? How do we finally do something that we've been trying to think of, right? Because there's a lot of ideas that are great, but we never seem to blend them together, right? Like it's like, yo, dealing with law school is like dealing with unified theory, right? We're trying to look for the unified theory in the universe. And gods have the gravity, they have this, but they don't put it all together and shit like that, right? But these are the assignments of creativity. Yes, we could input all of the squares and, figure out the Rubik's Cube for us, you know what I mean? But that doesn't give you the work. It doesn't give you the work.
It takes away from the journey.
Yeah.
It takes away from the journey.
And the work is important.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, my little one has like the smaller Rubik's Cube. And she was like getting frustrated, and I said, you solve the problem the way you want. And she was like, she goes, can I have your phone? And she immediately YouTube, how do I solve the Rubik's Cube? Right? So, but it was so funny because it didn't have a guide with the actual block, and he said, do this, that, and then you have it here. He basically gave a series of moves, so you still have to learn the patterns that give you stuff.
She ain't just try to take the stickers off.
Yeah. They don't make it like that no more though. That's why.
Oh wow.
The one it's all plastic, so so it's embedded in there. You can't do it. You know what I mean? So I said it's the idea of every now and then picking it up and messing with it to challenge your brain. Like it gets you sharper even without knowing. And like this is how you develop creativity. You know what I'm saying? And we don't do that. So like a lot of times in the classroom, I spend a lot of time having people notice the challenges of creativity, because like you asked me about the album. there are a lot of frustrations because the hip hop song, right? That shit has so many limitations compared to the paper. You know what I'm saying? I'm confined to a music. I have to be in tune with the music. I have to go with the theme. Let alone chorus though. I can't even do a chorus though, because choruses are evil and
Catchy.
You know what I'm saying? And like then I have to make it catchy. That's like I've been writing against catchy things my whole life, and then
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, come on, you gotta do the chorus though. But he still forced me to try to do choruses. So there's a lot of songs that don't have my chorus though. But like he forced me to do them. So like the Our Swords, the last song on the album, that was a chorus that I wrote, but it didn't come out right. But it had the nice words though, and then he fixed it and it made it to a chorus because I was like, fuck this, and I was like, I threw the whole thing and I was like, fuck this guy, you're the chorus master, you do it. But like that was the whole thing, the creativity. I create a lot of shit, but I realized like, yo, the exercise of doing this now puts me in another realm now. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And like, that's what the children need. They need these challenges of creativity. You know what I'm saying? If they get it like where it's homogenized and shit like that, like if they get used to a homogenized sound and shit, like a lot of the kids now, they appreciate the arts by the result of the art, not actually the art. You know, so like, not to sound like an old man, but like we appreciated the enjoyment of the art. So like we'd be to walk into a cipher and hear like brothers rhyming in a cipher, and they have to make it up, and we're having fun with that shit, right? That's an example of that. It still goes on, but that's an example. Whereas now it's more about what happened with the art. You made this and now you blew up. You made this and now you're here. You made this and now you're here. So it channels off to other things. So if they want the culture of Ultra Vlad, it doesn't matter what Vlad does, that's devilish. In the end though, it's like he still has the numbers. So the artist, even that craves creativity and has respect to creativity, will still go on that shit 1,000 times. I'm telling you now, they'll still go on there 1,000 times because he has reach. So the results of the work are more respected than the actual work itself. You know what I mean? So this is
And what he's doing and how.
Oh yeah, how he gets there and shit like that. You know, it's Machiavellian. You know, in that sense, yeah.
I mean, you know,
Machiavellian.
he's established himself, guys. So you know, there's a lot of people that have made them a part of their everyday diet.
Yeah.
You're seeing that also becomes something to break. On the flip side of things, though, what you're talking about and like some of the feedback that you got. Now you got to remember too, right? Things that are innovative, creative, and ahead of their time, like they aren't always immediately received well by people. Sometimes it takes people time to digest it, to look back and be like, oh shit, this was dope. And we have countless examples of that, not just in hip hop, right? Just in all areas. And even myself, right? We started off talking about AI. I found this Time magazine cover, and it was like, yo, here, the introduction to the computer, or the computer's here. It's like when the computer first arrived. Like, you know, everybody ain't have a computer in their house. Right. Now everybody got a computer in their pocket, right? Yeah. So it's like, yo, you know, a lot of folks are apprehensive about that at first too, right? So it's also understanding that too. It's going to take a certain passage of time for certain things to be understood and appreciated, and it's just important for the things that are most valuable not to be devalued. When you talk about that human component, for years now we've been taught to appreciate a devalued form of human expression, right? And I'm gonna show you a clear example, right? The auto-tune, right? The auto-tune took it so, and not to take away, that's a tool that's helpful, but you know, you have incredible singers in the past that, you know, they train themselves, they have vocal coaches, they did what they needed to do to become like the best, even with the natural talent that they had. But then now if you make it so that anybody that has not done that kind of work to develop themselves, you could just put them in a booth and push a button, and that's done. Like, that takes away, you know what I'm saying? That takes away in a certain way from
I
quality.
thought on that, right? What's interesting you say that is the perspective of things, right? There's a great jazz writer. He's a great jazz writer. I have his books. Ted Jiwa, right? And he also makes music. So these are people I thought of when I was like, I should make music. You know, because he writes about music, but they also make it. There's a lot of people like that in other genres. But Ted Jiwa had an article he wrote on his Substack about how one of the problems with music today is that people want it too perfectly done. And remember, the auto-tune was a machine to make your notes at the proper place. So you would never have a Mary J. Blige again. Like, you know, people that hit peaks that are incorrect. You know what I'm saying? And notes that are off. You know what I'm saying? Right? So you never get like Keisha Cole love song, the love song. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
right? Because she's off in that song when she hits the peak, but that's why we like it so much. She's off, right? So, in trying to have music have such perfect peaks, everybody sings like that. So when you hear an auto-tune song, technically all the notes are correct. It sounds fucking horrible to our ears, though. Right? It sounds synthetic and shit.
God,
but none of the notes are actually wrong in the auto-tune.
But the fact that it's not that it's not pure, the fact that it is synthetic, you know what I mean? Like, you know, for those of us that have those kind of ears, and it's like, you know,
Right.
you're not gonna latch onto it in the same
Right.
way. Like somebody like Jay Dilla.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like now, you know, like, cause even for me, it took a period of time where I went back to be like, oh shit, I get what he was doing and why he's so
Right, because
important.
as an
he was
MC,
not
right, you
using-
must have heard him off, because he puts the break is not, it's off.
Yeah, mad shit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
He was never using no quantizing.
Right,
Like
right.
it was just natural, you know what I mean? If
Mhm.
it's human error, that's what it is. And really ain't really an error, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's perfect within itself. Even like with the ideas and concepts, I was like, why is it donuts? Right? Why is it donuts and shit, but it's sweet loops, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, it's that human ingenuity, you know what I'm saying? That taking things from the mind and opening up the door to bring it into the world and make it born. Like, you know, that's something that only we really have the ability to do, you know what I'm saying? In this way here, you know? Peace.
Peace,
Peace,
God.
peace, God. Peace. Might agree that today.
Oh, peace, God.
Peace, God. How you going there?
I'll go with y'all. Yes, this might be long distance, but I'll go with you.
Okay, God. Peace, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, G. But again, it's like, yo, you know, with the passage of time, you know, people are gonna look
Yeah.
back.
All
All of this,
for God understanding, right?
Oh, no. Supreme, God. Supreme.
Peace, God, wow, yeah, right.
yo, you know, G.
Peace.
Peace, God. You out here?
Yeah, I'm gone.
Oh,
Travel
let
safe,
you know,
God.
God, next week I'm not going to be here. So even if I teach, if anybody comes, I probably will not teach at all, online or anything. So next week I will not be here.
So you want me telling
Yeah, so, yeah.
You on a week vacation?
Yeah.
Yo, it's good seeing you, God.
You
Peace, you king.
We'll call it that.
Pretty good you play that
We'll call it a vacation. My daughter, right? She'd be picking YouTube channels that are just goofballs. They love goofballs and repetitive goofballs and the thing. It's annoying because we spent our whole lives trying to watch all these great cartoons, and now we have the Disney app, Netflix, we could watch all of these things, but they choose stupid YouTube videos. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, listen, I said, you're gonna write me something and explain why this is valuable to you. And she didn't do it, right? So I said, hey, how come you haven't done the assignment yet? So she said, okay, I'll do it. But I can't do it like that. I can't write it. I'm not gonna write it like that. I said, what you mean? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna do it. I wanna write a song. I said, no, you gotta write an essay. I said, no, I wanna write a song. I said, oh, I wanna write a song. And I said, okay, all right, write a song. And so instead of doing the essay, she still got out of writing the essay though, so I didn't take note. But she wrote her first song, and it was answering to why she liked Janet and Kate, these little twin girls that play video games.
Okay.
You know, kids like watching video games.
Yeah, my son love
Kids
that.
watching
Play
other
other
kids
kids
play
play
video
video
games. So she wrote a song about how she wanted to be like Janet and Kate, and it had a loop, it had a bridge. The lyrics had loop, it had a hook, it had a bridge, and everything. It had high notes, everything.
Wow.
It bugged me out. Because everything that I've been like just saying, because I be playing music all the time and just talking shit about it. Just because, like, I'd just be
she's been
auto,
absorbing it.
I'd be on auto lecture just saying like, yo, you don't hear that? Wait, and I'd be rewinding things. I don't care if they hear it. I don't care if they get it. I just won't talk about this shit, right? Because I get to control the music, so I get to do whatever I want. She absorbed all of that. You know what I mean? I'm gonna play it later for you because then I had to record another song. She wanted to record one. I said, you want to record that one? She wrote another song. And I be talking about bees all the time. Don't be scared of them. They're beautiful, this and that. She wrote a song about bees. You know what I mean? And it came out dope too. You know what I mean?
I gotta hear it.
So I filmed the recording and everything, you know. But it's like it was so dope because she told me something. She's like, the whole premise of what I've always been trying to do is to try to have people find their creativity to answer to things. And she answered me defiantly, defiantly, but with creativity, you know what I'm saying? And it was dope, you know what I mean? And I made her practice it and shit like that. So like, when I did the first duck down dive, before I recorded it, I said, listen, you go outside and you practice. And after I record this and get the right tape.
Oh yeah, we were speaking that
Right,
day.
yeah. Right after, then I did that, and then that was that day, yeah. So it was crazy. It was crazy.
You access to express yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was just dope. But that was the highlight of the year. I made a whole album though, but that was the highlight of the year.
Seeing them be creative.
Right, but that's the whole thing though. And to me, our job though. This is why the nation is birthed through education. Our first institution is school, education. If we don't teach people to be creative, they can't value creativity, they can't value creations, they can't value the creator. You know what I'm saying? And the mystery God only helps be out of touch with creativity. You know what I'm saying? Because that's something that the mystery God makes. You only need to be creative to get the results out of it. And then if you tap in, people that are creative though, they continually give the credit to the mystery God. I just tapped in and shit like that. I just tapped in. And to me, that's the biggest bullshit because you're actually going through a specific mode to get into the vein, to that zone, And there are books, there's actually very old books I've collected. Like books when you collect them and they're mad old and they're out of print and shit. about sports, not about other shit. But there are a lot of books about the science of sports and the zone. But that shit is universal, the zone. Because I know you've written things. You had to have written songs that you were in the fucking zone.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's mindset song, definitely the zone.
Peace.
And you with the beats, there's beats. I'm just like, he's in the zone. And the zone is something where you're thinking, you're so in touch with what you know. It's really a fabric of what you know that you're ahead of what you're going to do with it. And so everything is coming together. All the pieces are coming together. In sports, you see it because, like a Jordan, first of all, he practiced so much. He's so in shape. He's such an exceptional athletic figure. But then now he knows exactly what he's going to do. So his choices are ahead of everybody else's choices. And he's athletic enough to make the choices before someone else does. So now he's in the zone. It's some ill shit. So the zone is really a mindset and shit like that. That is... It's basically the thought process just moving faster. And so you feel like you're moving faster. It's crazy.
Yeah, so much so sometimes that it's like, it's automatic.
Yeah.
It becomes,
right. And when people get into a zone, they're constantly recreating it, but then they go, it's the mystery God. And that's why, like in history, of course, too, most of the people that create art, they're dying of drug use and things like that because they think that that's how you get into the zone. Right?
Tap into
You have to tap into that and shit like
drug.
that.
So the drug becomes like a mystery God as well.
Yeah. But to me, we mentioned Coltrane, he's the greatest example of how that zone shit is all bullshit with the drugs. Because if you compare Bird and Parker, they were two obsessive musicians. They were obsessive. But Bird was always, he couldn't stop with the drugs, and that was obviously a part of the zone. But Coltrane got off drugs. He actually was doing drugs when he was with Miles in the beginning. And then he detoxed. But that's when he became a beast. So it was the obsessive practice and shit. We were saying he was training like 16 hours a day, they were saying. And just playing that much and shit like that, you know what I mean? And there's jazz records similar, but there's no records in jazz that are like tour de forces like that. Where you just hear a guy going nuts for like that long, continuously, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, drugs. Drugs, right now, especially like with the youth, that's like something else that really needs to be looked at too. You know what I'm saying? Because
it's being glorified in the music.
Yo, man.
Weaponized.
And see, that's the whole thing, right? the drug. You see, it's a very big change the last couple of years, right? In arts and music too, because drugs are always cool to do like musicians did, but you always knew that musicians did it to do the art, right? You excused it like they do it to do the art. But nowadays it's like, it doesn't matter though. That music is so shitty, it doesn't matter if they were high. They could do it anyway without the music. The music now is an ode to the drug, which means that the music could be made just in thought of the drug.
Well, also too, like the drug has become, has made to appear as if it's part of the culture,
Right.
and in some contexts, right? Because like if you think of lean, there's a specific region that you think of.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
see what I'm saying? And
Some of that
shit
is our
like,
fault,
and
though.
that shit is common.
Right?
Yeah, sure. I remember the first time I heard. Well, I can't remember the first time. I remember sipping on some scissor when that
Right.
came out. I remember.
Right.
I remember. You know, folks like dabbling in the ecstasy when, you know what I'm saying, folks started talking about it and seeing like their favorite artists or whatnot doing that. You know, but then again, like, it's like the focus has been put on that so heavy over the last couple of years, including by artists that ain't even using them.
I'll say this though, people, I'll probably get more trolls though, because people love it, but I give a lot of that credit, and negative credit has to be given to weed. Absolutely, 100%.
So we,
You said like
This is what I said.
a
because-
gateway drug,
you know,
basically. You saying?
No, not for the addictive qualities or anything like that, right? Because I personally don't think weed is super healthy, right? It has its drawbacks. But what I'm saying is, the weed, hip hop rhymed about weed, and one of the reasons that they said we're gonna keep talking about this drug because it stops us from glamorizing the other drugs. That was a real thing because cocaine was heavy in the beginning of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Coke was heavy and all that kind of shit, you know? Curtis Blow, shit like that. Like, that was part of the thing. Because they had never seen shit like that in those ciphers. And of course, coming out of the clubs, though, you had, what was the two musics in the clubs, though? If you go uptown and stuff like that, you had Southside and you had disco coming in the club. So those are coming with certain drugs and shit, right? But the argument that they would give when they would be asked, though, would always be like, well, you know, we're advocating this one. It's safer than other drugs. And in many ways it helped because you don't have a lot of drugs, though. You don't have a lot of songs, though, that just, compared to what hip-hop could talk about, right? And how much they drink it, you don't see, like, odes to Hennessy, like, for whole songs. You know, like, and you could think of lines, but you can't think of, like, the Hennessy song, you know, this song, right? But we could think of How to Roll a Blunt. Cypress Hill has a multitude of legendary songs, right? Hits from the bong, all this kind of shit, right? 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 They made the bong incredible. Like, if you didn't know what it was, you were like, what the fuck is a bong? Right? They made the bong a beat that shit sounded fire, right? The shit
But
is-
the scissor, well, when you say the scissor, it comes from,
Right.
it's a child of that, basically.
No, yeah, a child of all the weed stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because then it became something where it was like glory to the weed and there was worship of the weed.
I don't think that it
You know
was.
what I'm saying?
Well,
I'm saying that as someone listening to it who doesn't smoke.
I-
And when I cover it though, I'm like, yo, there is a worship of weed. You know what I'm saying? And it was only gonna be a matter of time before somebody and labels could redirect it and say, well, what about our drug that we're peddling? What about our fucking drug?
yeah, but see,
You know what I'm saying? So when they do it though, it does do that. When they say, listen, we need to get Hennessy written more in these things. We get to say, you know, with Hennessy got like
Monetize it.
Hennessy got a GOAT candidate to talk about it in a calm, cool way. Cause remember Nas.
Indeed, and
Right?
we had Pastor
Rakim did it
Cavassier,
too.
we had Pastor Cavassier. It was a lot of songs.
Right,
Where it's
right.
like, and alcohol's always, you know what I'm saying, in the forefront and being so hip hop's being used to sell alcohol for a long
Yes,
time.
absolutely.
But I think when you look at cannabis, God, you know what I'm saying, when you look at weed for the longest time, because that shit just became legal, right? And it's even still in certain pockets it's not. It's more like the rebelliousness of the people, like the nation, like, yo, why is it that this is illegal? Why is it that this is, you know what I'm saying, we being arrested for this?
That
And
too.
things like
Right.
alcohol are being sold openly and cigarettes and other things like that.
Right, and that
So
was
it's a
right.
certain
That
kind
was
of
that was
consciousness,
especially
too.
Cypress Hill, right? Because remember in that if you remember, their liner notes used to have like facts about, like from Black Sunday on. They used to have facts about, you know, about weed and shit like that. And they were, you know, they were the ones that were very articulate about it. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is like, even if it had good things, it gets bastardized too. You know, and that got bastardized as well because you could just flip it to a different drug. You know, so I'm not saying it's an absolute gateway drug, but I'm saying as far as the way marketers think about it and shit like that, because people forget, like, record labels actually absolutely 100% ask about particular topics. They ask artists for particular topics. You know what I'm saying? I was at labels where they asked them, where's the song about this? And why are you putting songs about this in there? You know what I'm saying? They ask about the topics that they want, you know? Just like when we go in the new, we get given a piece though, we're being told what type of questions to ask to the person, you know? From the 2000s on, we were asking about this beef, ask about that beef. From 2000 on, no, that was the way you got a mission, you know? What's the angle here? What's the controversy? You know what I mean?
Again, the music business and then the art of
Right.
the music.
Yeah.
Like so the music business in many respects have, you know,
Yeah,
diverted us away
yeah,
from the art
yeah.
form.
And that's why I always hated, and I always say this whenever I get a chance, I always hated the big, exceptional, it is exceptional, 600 page plus history from Dan Charnas about the business of music, because the whole framework is like, we should be grateful that it was actually monetized, you know what I'm saying? And I'll never, ever admit to that.
But
I'll never admit to that.
Could he be another culture vulture?
I mean,
we don't want to answer that, right? We don't want to. Touch
I'll
that.
let the people read it for themselves, you know what I'm saying? And see it for themselves, you know what I mean? But it's
Somebody
like,
who's not a part of the
Yeah.
culture,
yeah.
writing or,
Right.
or benefiting
Right.
from the culture.
And again, these are people that were writing in this shit longer than me. Dan Charnas was in the Source magazine in its very beginning, you know?
Yeah, but and that begs the question, like the importance of the culture vulture. You know what I'm saying? But even going back to like the NAACP, because it was some Jewish folks that like, oh no, I'm gonna get down with this.
Well,
and-
yeah, it was founded by Jews.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
G,
Yeah.
you know, at the end again, God, it's like, yo, the maker and the owner, right? And if we not owning our own creations, that's it's going to be a
You're right.
fundamental product.
That's
That's
a bill,
a-
God,
that's-
because
that's
I
a-
always
that's
say
a
in
fundamental
knowledge degree,
problem.
I always ask, why is that separated? People assume the maker is going to be the owner.
What it says is
You
clear.
have to do work to own what you
Right.
make.
oh, see, that's heavy right there.
Yeah.
It's
The maker,
clear.
the owner. So people are like, yeah, I'm the maker though, but you're not the owner.
You don't own it.
That's a
Right.
problem.
And that's what's beautiful about making music now, because people though, no matter how difficult it is though, you actually can own your music. You know what I'm saying? Like I was able to make things I own. You know what I'm saying? Like I have folders, God, somewhere, with tons of rejection letters from books I've written. You know, I've been pitching books to publishers since '95. That was one of my first assignments from my mentor in college. Put that in the book, and he showed me how to do an outline for a pitch and everything. You know what I mean? So I kept it though, just to ignite, you know, and keep the fire burning, you know, and wrote tons of shit, you know.
No, you made a lot of contributions over the years, G. And,
I still don't think somebody would publish my stuff now if I gave it to them.
I mean, you know what, God?
Yeah.
But like, you know what I'm saying?
But it goes back to like that point of being the owner. I would say it takes
Yeah.
work to be the owner, but a lot of people don't want to.
Right, they don't want to do that
They don't want
work.
to do that work. They actually want to
Right.
get paid.
If
and,
we
and sit
don't
back.
teach children that creativity is a form of actual work with, actual art, it's work to get out the art, then they'll never really do it. You know what I'm saying? They'll never really do it.
We talking about responsibility. All of it is responsibility.
If Mecca did this.